There's a lot of chord progressions that tend to move in predictable patterns of intervallic movement. The most common throughout time is moving through what is commonly known as the cycle of fifths. That's what we're looking at today, so grab your bass and let's get started. One of the first things that I learned regarding music theory was the cycle of fifths. This was a great tool that helped me to understand what the notes were called, but it also helped me to understand how all the keys in Western music are organized from 1 to 7 sharps or from 1 to 7 flats, as well as how they moved either clockwise or counterclockwise around the cycle. One of the things that I was always curious about is why the cycle was traditionally written where the sharp keys moved up in fifths clockwise around the cycle, but all my teachers at Berklee suggested that the best way to practice lines was to play them counterclockwise, which was moving up in fourths. This concept made perfect sense to me because when a 5-7 chord resolves to a tonic chord, it moves up by a perfect fourth. This was also the same intervallic distance from a 2 chord leading to the 5-7 chord. This principle also held true for many other chord progressions, including constant structure dominant 7th chords moving through the cycle, but up in fourths, not up in fifths. I used to ask my teachers frequently, why isn't the cycle written where the fourths move in a clockwise motion? Many replied with it's a tradition, or the fifth is an inversion of the fourth. But when I started to study with Charlie Banacos, he told me that it makes much more sense when relating to jazz and popular music to visualize the cycle as moving up in fourths as a clockwise rotation. Charlie said that when you move up in fourths, this created what he called the positive cycle, while conversely, when moving up in fifths, it created the negative cycle. So from that moment forward, I've always visualized the cycle as the cycle of fourths moving from left to right, which is the natural flow of music anyway, utilizing the most common interval of chord movement, which is up in fourths. Another facet of this that always fascinated me was seeing diagrams that people like John Coltrane and Eric Dolphy drew, where they had different geometric shapes like stars and triangles in the middle of the cycle. As time went on, I grew to realize that these shapes were maps, directing them through the cycle in different ways. Okay, so here's the cycle of fourths moving in a clockwise motion. If I connect a straight line from each note to the opposite note, it would look like this. If we then substitute every other note with their tritone substitute, it would look like this. Notice that this creates what is called the descending cycle of minor seconds, or simply the chromatic cycle that's represented by a star-shaped pattern. So let's take a dominant 7th pattern and learn to play this through the cycle of fourths. And at the same time, I'm going to show you how this relates to the chromatic cycle. This is an alternating dominant 7th pattern, so if we start with the first chord, which is C7, you'll notice that I'm playing a double above, double below chromatic approach combination into the 5-3 root and flat 7, and then I'm following this up by playing chromatic below, double above, chromatic below into the 3-5 flat 7 and flat 9 of the F7th chord. From there, this leads by half step into the B flat 7th chord, continuing our way through the cycle. So if you're thinking about this in the chromatic cycle, which descends by half steps, it's going to go from C7 to B7, then down to B flat 7. Every other note of the cycle of fourths will be replaced with its related tritone substitute. With that said, you're going to need to notice how the 3-5, flat 7, and flat 9 of the F7 becomes the flat 7, flat 9, 3, and 5 of the B7 chord. Notice that these interval cycles create different geometrical shapes. The cycle of fourths creates a circle, the tritone cycles create straight lines, and the chromatic cycle results in a star-shaped pattern. There's more involved, but this will get you started. If you're interested in becoming a better improvising bass player and learning great musical content from arpeggios to grooves, then subscribe to my channel now. If you like this lesson today, then be sure to support my channel by giving it a big thumbs up. And if you really like this lesson, then please check out my books, my membership website, and my Skype lessons. Until next time, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively.